Public-private partnerships. How can PPPs deliver better services? Getting the framework right for PPPs.
What is required to build a successful public-private partnership? This is a question that is increasingly on the minds of leaders of public and private institutions. The demand for these public-private partnerships, or PPPs, is often driven by governments who are looking for new sources of capital or expertise, or looking for ways to transfer risk. But what does it take to create a successful PPP? At International Finance Corporation, or IFC, we looked at 60 projects in over 35 developing countries to look at the ingredients of a successful PPP. Our goal was to define a simple framework for leaders who are thinking about pursuing a public-private partnership. What we found is that a successful PPP depends on 3 ingredients: economics, politics, and execution. Let's take a look at each of these. The first ingredient is economics, and the first lesson here is to ensure that the project has sound economic fundamentals. Now, governments often see PPPs as a way to improve or make viable financially challenging projects, and certainly an effective PPP can improve the economics of a project. But the basic business case, the revenues, the costs, the level of debt, have to make fundamental economic sense for a PPP to work. So an example of this, a success, is a water project in Africa, where the key economic driver was the ability of customers to pay. That determined the overall revenue of the project, which determined the amount of debt it could carry, and hence its overall size and its ultimate success. And the project was a success. In contrast, we had a toll road project in Europe, where political pressure caused 2 extra lanes to be added to the project. Now, the level of subsidy required would have been enormous to subsidize these 2 extra lanes, making the project unviable. So, to put it simply, PPPs can deliver successful and financially attractive projects, but they can't perform economic miracles. So the basic elements of the business case have to work. The second lesson under economics is to structure the right partnership. Structure the partnership that optimizes cost, quality, and service. In other words, one that meets the business objectives but also meets the public policy objectives. Now, there are very many different partnership structures that you can consider in a PPP, and of course it can range from everything from basic procurement all the way to full privatization and private ownership. And choosing the right structure depends on the circumstance and can certainly be informed by looking at past transactions of a similar nature. One example of choosing the right transaction was an electricity project in a recently war-torn state. Now, given the political environment and the economic environment, trying to attract or establish a fully private operator just wasn't a feasible option. So a management contract was established with the right kind of incentives and penalty payments, and it was sufficient to attract an international operator. And the result was a successful project with both improved service and improved financials. Again, meeting the public policy objectives while also providing a strong business case. Let's turn to the second ingredient, politics. And here the first lesson is to secure political champions. Now, any project requires a champion, someone to articulate and refine the vision, to guide progress, and to advocate for support. But for PPPs, political champions are particularly vital given the significant public stake in the projects. So our teams repeatedly cite the importance of political champions, and in fact, it's rare for major projects to survive without them. A strong champion or multiple champions really can make all the difference. In a recent successful hospital project in Africa, our team cited the strong support of both the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Health as a key reason for the project's success. The second lesson is to build stakeholder support. Now, PPPs, because of their size and nature, typically involve a large array of interested and influential stakeholders, all with a diverse array of interests: economic, political, environmental, and social. The very best projects do more than just identify and manage those stakeholders. They actually develop a deep understanding of stakeholder interests, and they optimize the business case in the project accordingly. Now, 2 water projects in Asia actually illustrate this very well. In one project, a key feature was a requirement that the private partner be 60% locally owned. The project moved forward successfully and is now yielding fresh water with better service and lower rates to residents. In the second country, a lack of local investors contributed to public unease with the project, and that was cited as a key driver of the project's ultimate failure and termination. Next, assess and manage environmental and social impacts. Attention to social and environmental issues really has become a precondition for success today. And addressing these issues is not just the right thing to do, but it's also essential to the success of projects. And we have seen where major projects have unraveled, where environmental and social issues haven't been properly addressed at the outset. An example for us is a major European hydroelectric project, which was shelved because of concerns over water levels. But through a technical redesign, the team was able to solve these issues, and the project was restarted and successfully completed. The final lesson under politics is to foster a stable and supportive regulatory environment. A sound regulatory environment is often a condition of success for a PPP. The regulatory environment doesn't need to be perfect, but you do need regulatory stability for key elements of the business case. This is seen most clearly in utility projects, where the regulation of consumer prices could make or break the project. Let's turn to the third ingredient, execution. And here, the first lesson is to use a disciplined approach, because time and complexity are your enemies. Now, a disciplined approach to project management is valuable in any project, but it's particularly important to PPPs, where projects can be complex and timing is often critical because of limited political windows and election cycles. Overall, our experience shows that the longer a project takes, the less likely it is to succeed. So be sure to have strong project management. Next, secure the right mix of local and global experts. PPPs are complex, and you will very likely need to draw on global experts to address the many complex technical, economic, and legal issues that will arise. But perhaps even more important is the local team, the presence of local, on-the-ground capabilities. In a desalination project in the Middle East, the team combined the expertise of both local and global technical consultants. And this was cited as one of the key drivers of the project's success. So be sure to assemble a team of both local and global experts. Support a transparent, competitive bid process. Unsolicited bids and non-competitive processes are often tempting, either for governments looking to move quickly or for companies looking to gain an advantage. For large PPP contracts, we strongly recommend transparent, competitive bid processes. Not only is this good business practice, but anything less risks undermining public support for the project in the long term. Now, there are circumstances where sole bidder negotiations can be advantageous to governments, but these are exceptions to be managed with care. Finally, plan for ongoing contract monitoring and review. Governments need to have the capacity to monitor and manage their contracts, ensuring compliance and resolving disputes when they arise. They also need to contemplate the possibility of renegotiation as the situation changes over the years. An example of this is a successful Latin American project where improvements to services led to increased demand. This encouraged the government and private partner to revisit the level of subsidy. For governments, the capacity to monitor and review can also provide a base of expertise for undertaking further PPP projects. Together, these hard-won lessons provide a practical and powerful framework for successful public-private partnerships, or PPPs. Use it as an overall guide for the types of issues you will need to address. In the paper that accompanies this talk, we've also provided a checklist of 12 questions you should ask about a potential PPP. Perfect answers aren't required for every one of the questions, but if you do answer no to more than half the questions, you may want to consider whether a PPP is appropriate at this time. Ultimately, the challenge is to deeply understand and address all of the issues, economics, politics, and execution in an integrated way. With this understanding, a successful partnership will grow and succeed.
This has been an Open Learning Campus presentation brought to you by the World Bank Group, accelerating solutions through learning.